I'm with Professor Iain Gray of Cranfield University, Director of Aerospace and former CEO of Innovate UK and former MD of Airbus UK. So, Professor Gray, you have wide experience of the aerospace industry in this country. I suppose the question on everyone's lips at the moment is how will UK aerospace and indeed European aerospace fare in the new post-Brexit climate?
Well, I guess the first thing to say is aerospace is an international business. I mean, since the day I graduated, right through industry, right through Innovate UK, right through Cranfield, we've been cooperating with companies, institutions, governments right around the world. So aerospace is an international business. We're disappointed in some of the potential implications of Europe regards funding, particularly funding around research. But let's be under no illusions. We're in an international business and will continue to be part of an international business.
And what form will this participation take? There's a lot of talk in the early days of after the referendum vote of what kind of relationship UK industry as a whole, let alone aerospace, is going to forge with the European partners.
Well, I guess it's immediately evident to say that the UK civil aerospace business is very strongly dependent on some of the European companies who have their headquarters around Europe, the Airbuses, the Safrans of this world. But the UK has real strengths in aerospace. I mean, it is still the second biggest aerospace manufacturing country in the world. We've got wing manufacture for all of the Airbuses here in the UK. The wing is a particularly strong part of the aeroplane in a technology sense. That's a great part for the UK to play its part in. Rolls-Royce, big engine provider across the globe. So we've got to show that our mettle. We've got to sort of live up to this. We've got to live to the words that we say. We've got to remain that second biggest aerospace manufacturing entity in the world.
And in terms of the pan-European programs, we're not just talking about the Airbus programs and military programs as well, such as F-35 and Eurofighter. There's also the single European sky as well, which is of key importance to UK aviation. What way forward do you see in terms of CESAR?
Well, single European sky. I mean, airplanes know no boundaries in a physical respect. The Clean Skies Initiative, CESAR, very important initiatives. But again, here in the UK, we are strong. We've got NATS, we've got CAA, we've got airports that are the envy around the world. In fact, one of the great things about the UK, which I think is a big challenge for us, but if we can rise to it, is a real opportunity, is we are the second biggest manufacturing aerospace community in the world. We have some of the strongest air traffic, airport, airline management capabilities in the world. A really strong aviation sector. And yet, these continue to operate as two parallel universes in many respects. I think the big opportunity for the UK is to try and bring the aviation and the aerospace communities together. And that's where institutions like Cranfield University can play a hugely important role. And if we can bring these two things together, I mean, the opportunities are enormous for us.
But there are competing priorities at play here. How can they be reconciled?
Well, there are competing priorities. There's always competing priorities. My point is, we already have the second biggest aerospace manufacturing community in the world. We already have real strength in air traffic management, real strength in our sort of airport management, real strength in some of the small airlines and new business models. So we're not actually asking for people to, do things radically different in that regard. We're looking at how can we bring these two different universes together and capitalize it in a world where intelligent transport, the whole 4-hour door-to-door kind of grand challenge, the environmental challenges exist. If we can bring those two things together, I think we've got real strengths here in the UK on an international stage.
And in terms of unmanned aerial vehicles, that's another area where there is an enormous challenge that requires a lot of concerted efforts from various parts of the aerospace industry. Now, I know that Cranfield University has been working on a few projects to try and reconcile civil and military airspace integration. Can you summarise what the prospects are?
Yeah, I mean, just Cranfield University is unique. It's unique in many regards. It's the only university in Europe with its own airport, its own runway. It was established back in 1946 to be that interface between industry and academia. UAVs is part of the psyche of Cranfield. In fact, the very first UAVs in the world, I believe, flew from Cranfield. So we've been involved in that since the beginning. We've got real strengths at Cranfield in UAV systems technology, very focused around autonomy, developing different autonomous solutions for both the quadcopter kind of UAVs, for fixed wing UAVs, beyond line of sight UAVs. We've got that capability. And the other strength we've got at Cranfield is increasingly the industrial themes we've got around energy and environment and agri-food, which are becoming the users of UAV. So we've got all that experience. Combine that with an airport and a runway where we can start to develop the procedures of how UAVs operate in civil airspace, bring in the kind of technologies around holographic radar that can detect UAVs in civil aerospace. We've got all the ingredients to make Cranfield play a really strong role in developing that capability here in the UK.
And one last question, another question on many people's lips in civil aviation in this country is when the government does decide to recommend an extra runway for the southeast of the UK, it will either be in Heathrow or either Gatwick. What do you think the prospects are for a decision in the October timeframe, which is what the government just said?
Well, that's beyond my pay grade. It will not be Cranfield, I can tell you that. What Cranfield does offer in having its own airport and runway is the ability for the UK to have an airport which it can use as a demonstrator airport, so that it can trial some of the new virtual control tower technologies, autonomous ground technologies, things like holographic radar technologies. So that's not an answer to the Heathrow or Gatwick question, but it could well be an answer to many of the airports around the UK. How do we make them more efficient? How do we capitalise on the strengths we've already got?
So Cranfield is a testbed for UK aviation and will continue to be so, I expect.
Couldn't say it better myself. Cranfield is a testbed for aviation. My objective is Cranfield defining and delivering the aircraft of the future, the airport of the future, the airspace management of the future, and the airline of the future.
Professor Gray, thank you very much.